Greetings to you all in the best of salutations. Yes, I probably want to try to deal with um, the tension between what is ideal and what is real. Tension, that's the tension. I have always stated that we live in a simulated reality that's not our own and has been given to many people by a conjecture, a master magician. And a master magician would never let you know what his tricks are, tricks to the trade. And there are people who are very enchanted, disoriented, disgruntled, and disillusioned. So therefore, people can be under the spell of an illusionist. This tension of what is ideal and what is real. Yes. And there is a African principle that says that a social conflict produces an illness, and there will be which is uh, misfortune, misfortunate, when one is unable to improve upon his or her in life, and as a result, he or she becomes an outlaw. It's reckless, go about doing things with reckless abandonment. And before I proceed on about what is between what is the tension between what is ideal and real, I want to deal with the sixth letter of the Hebrew alphabet in the book called the Hebrew alphabet uh, by Hoffman. Chronicle books said that the letter Vav connotes space, mass, and physical wholeness. That every complete self-contained object contains six dimensions. You know, you see a, well, let me go on. These are above, below, right, left, front, and back. It interprets the verse of Genesis. 6 days did God make the heavens and the earth, with the explanation that each day performed its action, that each day corresponds to a special divine force in the creative process. The Hebrew word for confession, the vidu, begins with Baal. In Jewish tradition, there is no vicarious atonement. Each of us is responsible for our own misdeeds and must redress them properly. Mystical legends suggest that it's never too late to mend one's ways, but as a result of habitual lapses and persistent wrongdoing, the power to do so can be taken from us. The letter Vav is also the Hebrew prefix meaning and that which joins together words, sentences, and concepts. Vav signifies that things seemingly separate and even contradictory, such as in a conflict, can be viewed as comprising a higher unity. With the right attentiveness, we can perceive the nature of that unity and thereby resolve conflicts. The straight upright form of the Vav additionally suggests that only when a person expresses uniqueness can a meaningful joining with others occur. Otherwise, the effort at linkage is superficial weak, and ultimately doomed to failure. Never seek to imitate the spiritual path of another. If you try to do so, not only will you fail in fulfilling your own path, but you will not do as well in the task meant for your neighbor. To strengthen your sense of interconnection in your actual social network in daily life, meditate on the letter Vav. Let's look at that now as I review this text, or as we review this written piece of literature. Yes, literature in the earth, in the spirit of the earth, produces healthy politics. Mass, space, and physical whole. You look at this universe, we're here to share this space. Humans are, are living in different geographical locations. You have the animals, um, you have the plant life, you have the constellation, and everything is in a system. The the space, the mass, and the physical wholeness. Because there is a teaching that says that oneness is stronger than diversity, and unity is stronger than conflict. It says that every complete, complete wholeness means complete, complete. We get into that. It is self-contained. It says the object contains 6 dimensions, above and below. Look at a square. I realize that the purpose of a square is not to take more than what is needed. Yes, what is below, above, to the right and to the left, and the front to the back. In this light which represents knowledge, 6, does time start, begin, and end with 6. I know that 6 under a teaching of called alpha beta calculus, encoding and decoding the English alphabet system. 6 is governed by the law of understanding. It is the method of harmony. Before anything can manifest itself, it must first have order. 6, sex, is the understanding, and out of understanding comes consciousness. This higher elevated state of consciousness and understanding of the earth, and here that which we put our feet on, this earth, on this ground, represents stability. Talk about that. Each day perform its action. Above, perform its action in a system. Below, performs its action in a system. The right, perform its actions. The left, the front, and the back. The space, the mass, the physical wholeness that every complete self-contained. So it is the completion of self-containment. What I mean self-contained, it is the temperance slash temperament And temperance, it says that anything that we master in the English Bible must master temperance, self-control. The urges, some will call it, in the Islamic teaching, associate that with shirk. The urges, doing things just to be seen. But then the temperament is the right attitude. It is said that the people who were kicked out of the garden, they wasn't kicked out with just their attitude. It is the attitude that we have about things. And we bring the right attitude, surely we can solve, you know, some problems with the right attitude. And I say that we're born in condition, placed in a situation, surrounded by circumstances, consequently due to some previous activity that has taken place. Yes, the condition in which we were born in, we have no control of. Then the situation, we must not let the situation overwhelm us, but we must take control of the situation. Surrounding circumstances, surely we must become masters of circumstances because circumstances makes us other than ourselves. And consequently, we're dealing with one's actions or deeds. And deeds repeat themselves, become habits, become habitual. Then you deal with habitual, you deal with a habitat. You deal with a habitat, you deal with an environment. So that which we must be accountable for, we cannot get away from it in our daily life, is the consequences of our actions. It is the true meaning of dealing with that which is called a correspondence. Yes. The Hebrew word for confession, vadu, begins the word evolve in the Jewish tradition is no vicarious atonement, which means when you think about it, many know that the word atonement really means one. We're dealing in a society with people called random acts of violence. And violence is the result of an unresolved status to me. When you don't know who you are and where you want to go, you're more prone and more susceptible under the influence of the larger society to participate in acts of violence under some type of influence that becomes very intoxicated because it's toxic and not medicinal. And that's the environment and the habitat. Because of the lack of completeness, a feeling of wholeness. And even someone said this in this regard, I believe it was Dr. Frances Wells Wilson in her book, The ISIS Paper. And she was talking about violence by people who have become obsessed and very aggressive uh, with violence due to the fact that there is an emptiness, there is a sense of incompleteness or a void, but there's a deep-seated feeling of inadequacy and insecurity. So one tried to compensate for that. And that's why I like Dr. Seymour. When she talk about culture, she said culture is dynamic, it always changes. You have to take a very serious look at culture when it becomes destructive. Then I think about um, Einstein when he said a problem. He says a problem can't be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Yes. And I like to say a problem is many people dealing with an identity crisis. His brother Anzola would say that many psychological breakdowns is due to living phony lives and living a false sense of of thinking you're this when you're not that. The identity. Yes. So we're dealing with the correct interpretation or the incorrect interpretations of nature and the correct interpretation of what's above and below is what's above is that is in a system and is interconnected and interrelated. Oneness, again, is stronger than diversity, and unity is stronger than conflict. So each of us is responsible for our misdeeds. That's a good one too. Each of us is responsible for our misdeeds. There is something that says this here is that dealing with two burdens: the burden of one's own wrongdoing and the burden of misleading others. Why would you place that burden on someone? Yes, the burden of misleading others. Yeah, we're still talking about the ideal, the tension between what is ideal and what is real. And deal with the mystical legend suggests that it is never too late to mend one way, but as a result of habitual lapses and persistent wrongdoing, the power to do so can be taken from us. We have to mend and change our ways, our way of thinking. I realize that change is the product of human effort. And no one, if one, it's hard to change in any individual change if he don't see an issue with his action. It's very difficult. Yes, change is a product of human effort. You know, things can be taken from us. A child can be taken from us. Have mercy, have mercy. That's abbreviated life expectancy. So what comes out of the mentality of any people who create an environment that is puts people at odds with one another? And it's what's strange to me is that when humankind use their mental faculties and their physical abilities to put one at odds with one another. See, this tension of what is real, what is ideal, and what is real is like many people's society. We can agree with each other. That goes for organizations or people in leadership or what have you. That we can agree with each other on the surface, but beneath the surface, we're at odds with each other. Yes. So the letter Vav also the Hebrew prefix meaning in that which joins together words, synthesis, and concepts. Words brings us together. Words. And I realize that when you're talking about a word, the word for me is integrity. Integrity. Yes. That which we say, the words that we use, and the manner and way in which we express ourselves must be done in a healthy and whole manner. Then you create the synthesis, you know, a verb and a noun, and even an adverb, a subject. You know what I'm saying? And it ends with a period. And then you may put a comma in there, or you may end up put a period in it. Then you add another sentence, and that sentence becomes a paragraph. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. And sooner or later, you wind up having a manuscript. And sooner or later, you wind up turning into a book. And that book is you and I. That means that book is our life. Yes, the life that we live. And then in concept, yes, an idea. Remember, an idea, race is just an idea, it's not a fact. Yes, even though the ancients say that humanity will be driven by ideas. So we have to overcome that which is contradictory to nature. Yes. And what I mean that which is contradictory to nature, just look at the birth or life. You know, it is a process. The sperm goes into mixed sperm, or sperm goes into an ovum, and it goes through a process. And sooner or later, the child is conceived, but it's a process. So let's call it that which is considered to be that which is gradual, but it is a process. So, and in that process, we must give the right attentiveness, to perceive the nature of unity, so that we can comprise a higher sense of understanding of one another, a higher sense of understanding of ourselves, of our soul, of our mind, of our body, autonomy, self-rule. Ideal, the word ideal is satisfying one's conception of what is perfect. It is said that um, in this here about perfection, when you can raise something that is dead against strong opposition, that's perfection. Yeah, you has perfected the art because you have become a master of doing something. And when you become a master of doing something, you have become proficient in it. And that which is most suitable. So anything that is most suitable that is addressing the aspirations of the people. Some will see or go to a swimming pool. It is ideal for a quick dip. It is the ideal. It says the ideal existing only in the imagination. Something that is desirable or perfect, but not likely to become a reality. Like you may be, people may consider you that ideal person for the job. Yes, you may be that the home in which you may live. You may think it's the ideal home, the ideal, the model. You see, I realize that people in this society, we argue over methodology, but the principle stays the same. And that's nature. Nature always balances itself out. What goes up must come down. The right, the left, the front, and the back. It is the balance. It's saying that a person who knows not and knows that they know not is foolish. Disregard them. So that's why it says, never put a fool in the position of power. People start thinking that's the model to follow. So we're talking about that which is real. Something as a thing or occurring in fact, not something that is imagined nor supposed. So we have to deal with the reality. Many of people who were people who are of African descent here in America knew that their children, they did things to prolong the life of their children. So some things they had to accept. They looked for the future, or they protected the posterity of their children. And you can see some of the results of that at this present time. There are some intangibles, or some things that is very that are the evidence of the humanity of people who had went through a system that was designed to dehumanize their thinking and their attitude, to dehumanize them, but yet they still have their humanity. That's a beautiful thing. So may we find that common humanity that resides in us all, going beyond race, class, gender, and religion. So this tension, state of being stretched tight or stretched too far. And remember, I always say that social stress leads to mental pain, and mental pain leads to physical harm. That stress affects us. It impacts us. And we become under duress and unable to think clearly. So what is needed is clarity. Clarity is needed. In closing, I'm going to share something in the book called The Ideologies of Developing Nations by Paul E. Sigmund, or Sigmund. It was something written by Habib, a former prime minister, I believe a president in Tunisia. Or, yes, he was talking about the first leaders of Islam were infinitely bolder and infinitely freer in their application of the principles of their religion. The reason why he was stating this, because he was saying that when he was talking about the fast of Ramadan, he was saying the cause of these obstacles to our progress, or if there is a cause uh, of any obstacle to any progress of the human development of the human intellect, he says it is not in the Muslim religion. He says, as I know it, I have studied it and learned it, and as it was lived and practiced by the earliest members of the Prophet himself and his companions, contemporaries and successors. The Muslim religion is not it's not to a point whereas that it creates obstacles that hinders the progress of human development when it comes to the intellect. So any religion, because if you don't follow certain things, anything that comes a hindrance to the human development of the human intellect, then there's a edict or something must be set in place to say, man, this is not working. And therefore, you got to realize, I don't care what position of power that you hold, you ain't beyond reproach. No one is beyond, because no one has a monopoly on intelligence. And we need to be clear with that. So I say that this tension is real between what is ideal and what is real. It is real. This existence in which we are living in, that which we are confronted with every day, is real. So that is that which we have to deal with in our emotion, and in our feelings, and even in our thinking. What has given us this thought process? Everything begins with a seed, and the seed is a potential, and the potential is to fulfill our purpose. And what is our purpose? It's not to make mockery of each other and not to make mockery of time. So may we continue to give to the gift of social literacy, and knowing that oneness is stronger than diversity, and unity is stronger than conflict. And may we continue to be granted success for our labor and joy for our sorrows. Take it how you want it, how you want to receive it, accept it or reject it. We all must deal with the consequences of our actions. Until next time, talk to you.